As China enters an aging society, fewer people are getting married and having children. According to the China Statistical Yearbook 2023 compiled by the National Bureau of Statistics, the number of first marriages in China was over 10 million in 2022, a drop of 9.16% from the previous year. This marks the first time in 38 years that the number of first marriages has fallen below 11 million. China's marriage registration data includes the number of both first marriages and remarriages. In 2022, 6.835 million marriages were registered, a 10.6% decrease compared to the previous year. The number of first marriages in China peaked in 2013, when a total of 23,859,600 people got married for the first time. After that, the number of first marriages declined year after year, falling by 55.9% over the past 9 years. In other words, compared to 2013, it decreased by about half. Only about 1/3 of the country's 31 provinces had more births than deaths. China's demographics are showing clear signs of trouble. China's most recent census yearbook also shows that the average age that people get married has been delayed by 4 years over the past 10 years, from an average of 25 years old in 2010 to 29 years old in 2022. The biggest reason for the sharp decline in first marriages stems from real-life pressures. After getting married, one will face the problem of childbearing. With China's prevalent 996 work system, i.e. working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week, in a heavily competitive educational environment, it's difficult for young people to invest time, money, and energy in thinking about childbearing given the pressure of their huge workload. If there are no plans to have children, for many Chinese people, getting married is not that meaningful. Chinese netizens commented, "In the past, getting married was for survival, but now not getting married is also for survival." Other than true love, the general situation is that poor guys don't have the confidence to get married. Poor girls want to find a guy from a good family. Guys from a good family instead are not in a hurry to get married. And girls from a good family won't look for a guy from a worse family than their own. In China, the cost of getting married isn't low. For example, the man's family usually has to prepare 3 golds or 5 golds as gifts for the future wife. The 3 golds are a gold ring, a gold bracelet, and a gold necklace. 5 gold items usually refers to rings, necklaces, earrings, bracelets, and anklets. Many people get married in October, so wholesalers are willing to acquire more gold before this month. Our sales volume dropped a little bit, but still had a monthly growth of 20% in October. Another huge expense for the man's family is the dowry. In China, dowry money is generally around 100,000 to 150,000 yuan, or 10 to 20,000. In some areas, men are required to buy a flat and a car as part of the dowry. That could be more than US 140,000. None of these issues were so outstanding 2 decades ago, but in the midst of an economic downturn, the dowry has become more of a weight in getting married. The woman's parents would think, "We've raised our daughter for so many years, we must get the money back." For example, in rural China, if a family has a son and a daughter, it is the daughter's dowry money that is taken to pay for the son's wife. For folks in urban areas, it has become almost mandatory for the groom or his family to buy a flat and a car. Those who marry without a dowry, without a flat, etc. are called naked marriages. They are rare cases in China. The reality is that people of the marriage age are facing enormous pressure in their lives. Prospects for their finances and employment are getting worse given the economic downturn. It's November already. Right now, it's really hard to find a job in Fuzhou. One of my classmates who is also in Fuzhou is preparing to go to graduate school. He wanted to find a job that was a bit lighter. He interviewed at many companies. Last night, when he had dinner with me, he told me that a $500 a month job was being competed for by college students or graduate students. He found that jobs with a salary of 4,000 to 8,000 yuan, that is 561 to 1,123 per month, are non-existent, like a vacuum in Fuzhou. There are no such jobs. A salary of 8,000 yuan or more is for people like software engineers or some specific positions. The typical salary you're looking for now is basically just under $500. A lot of companies have gotten rid of the redundant positions. Now you can see the ones who stay in the company are elites. If you want to go to work in such a company, you can only have a low-paying kind of sales job, or you are particularly outstanding in your ability. So it's really hard to find a job in Fuzhou for an average person. I advise my classmate, if needed, you can just take on a delivery job on the side like me. Fuzhou has been ranked 6th on China's list of second-tier cities this year. If its economic situation is like this, it is hard to imagine the employment situation in other cities. It's even harder to imagine how much they can actually earn and how much they can afford to pay for a dowry and a home while meeting their daily expenses, paying off their debts, supporting their parents, and so on. The CCP has destroyed traditional values, including the beliefs of family and marriage. During the 30 years of rapid economic development, a money-oriented culture has formed in China. The heavy pressure of the economy and the intentional breeding of the party culture have made many young people think differently. They have even come to regard marriage as a transaction or a springboard to life. Money and power are now playing a significant role. China implemented the one-child policy in the 1970s and later relaxed the conditions for childbirth in rural and ethnic minority areas in the 1980s, when authorities allowed couples to have a second child if their first child was a daughter. In recent years, in an effort to deal with an aging population and maintain an appropriate population and labor force, the Chinese government allowed 2 children since 2013 and extended the 2-child policy to all married couples in 2016. In 2021, they started encouraging 3 children by providing subsidies for childcare, etc. However, the modest monetary incentives to boost fertility have only had a limited effect. So, it is a natural consequence that the number of first marriages in China dropped off a cliff and fell below 11 million in just less than 10 years. When fewer people are born, naturally, fewer people will get married years later. It is now the time for those born between 1995 and 2000 to enter the stage of marriage and parenthood. They are exactly the generation under the mandatory one-child policy of the CCP. On social media, Chinese netizens are also discussing this issue. Some people bluntly say that it's killing the goose that lays the eggs, karma, supposedly referring to the one-child policy many years ago. Because of family planning, gender imbalance between men and women is serious. There are tens of millions more men than women. Many women who are well-educated and have higher incomes are no longer willing to settle for marriage. If there is no suitable candidate, they would rather stay single. In today's world of global modernization, the internet and social media platforms are well developed. Chinese young people pay more attention to the pursuit of personal freedom and the realization of personal dreams. The emphasis on family in traditional Chinese culture and concepts such as there are 3 ways to be unfilial and having no offspring is the greatest have been abandoned by many young people.
Regardless of what kind of schemes developers use and how they lure, I am determined not to buy a property. I'm now in my 20s. It'll be impossible to sacrifice 20 years, 30 years of happiness to realize the interests of the capital. Some people will argue with me, if you don't buy a home, what will happen to your children when they start school? Then I won't get married. That's good enough, right? I have spent more than 10 years studying, and now I need to work hard for another 40 years. Life is only a few short decades. Why should I pay for the sky-high prices speculated by the capital?
The media in mainland China have also admitted that young people's views on marriage have changed, and many no longer regard marriage and childbirth as a mandatory course in life. This attitude of young people certainly worries the CCP, so the media and experts have been trying to sway public opinion. For example, NetEase published an article with the title, Severe Crackdown, Young People's Malicious Non-Marriage Behavior Endangers Family Stability and Social Order. An article on Sohu.com reads, although everyone has the right to make their own choices, the behavior of maliciously not getting married should be condemned. Of course, Chinese netizens laughed and said, what can you do to me? What are you going to do? Arrest me and put me in jail? For the Chinese people, they have to scrimp and save to make ends meet, and the party cannot solve this economic problem. With future economic disasters just around the corner, who would dare to step into such a money-burning pit as marriage? Fuzhou this year has absolutely seen a consumption downgrade. A falling leaf reveals the coming of autumn. Through my delivery job, I can see that Fuzhou's consumption is really downgraded. Previously, what would people order? It was around 30 yuan, that is $4 for a beef rice dish. If they ordered a fried noodle dish, they would also add 2 extra pancakes. Now it's different. Orders are around 12 to 15 yuan, usually not more than 15 yuan, that is $2.10. Orders are usually the type that fills the stomach, that's it. In this neighborhood, the takeout restaurants that survive the best are those that sell fast food, at the price range of 10 yuan, basically because we food delivery riders can see the price. I now deliver almost 50 to 60 orders a day, of which 40 orders fall in this kind of price range. I noticed that compared with last year, the price range of food orders dropped by at least $12. After all, a lot of people aren't making much money, so they try to save on food orders. Now, there are also more delivery guys. Those who used to order takeout last year have come to do the delivery this year. Some people may not be happy with what I said. They accuse me of singing the praises of the bad, but these are really what I have seen and how I feel. Interestingly, China's popular news platform, Today's Headline, commented on the issue with the headline, Why Young People Are Maliciously Not Getting Married, Experts Are Puzzled. Do Chinese experts really not understand why young people refuse to get married? Of course not. Rather, it's because the issue of marriage has touched the deepest problem in China. That is, in the more than 30 years of the CCP's authoritarian capitalism, the populace has been harvested like chives over and over again. The lower the level, the more severely they have been exploited. The so-called world factory is, to put it bluntly, a miracle brought about by the heavy exploitation of Chinese workers by global capitalists and participating players. Over the past few decades, the Chinese have been feeding the huge communist bureaucracy with their sweat. China developed rapidly, relying on an economic model of a Ponzi scheme. Too many Chinese have been content with being free from hunger and poverty that they failed to recognize such a scheme, and even developed a sense of gratitude to the communists. Now, many Chinese seem to have suddenly come to their senses. They don't want to be chives anymore, and they don't want to breed the next generation of chives either. Chinese experts don't dare to tell the truth to their leaders, let alone announce it to the public. They play dumb and give the decision makers some painless tricks with no practical significance. How brazen is the chive harvesting in China these days? For example, on November 19, 2023, media in Henan province reported that a Unicom engineer in Zhoukou City with decades of experience was suddenly fired because he failed to complete a sales mission. He exposed that the company stopped the user's broadband on the back end and then charged a fee by replacing the router with a new one. The recycled old routers were then reinstalled for new users. The company stopped the user's broadband from the back end and let us engineers go to the user's home to replace the router. We can only say stuff against our conscience that their routers are broken, but in fact, they are fine. It costs 299 yuan for a new router, and after replacing it, the company will turn it on again for you from the back end. In addition, Unicom now installs the old router to users. Where do the old routers come from? They are the broken ones that we have collected from users when replacing routers. They are then given to other users to be installed. After the installation and in a while, users will be told that their routers are old and no longer compatible, and they need to be replaced with new ones. Then they will be given a new router. This cycle repeats itself over and over again, adding to the company's revenue. Does it cost to install this router? It costs 100 yuan as a tuning fee. It also turns off the user's cell phone SMS service and then adds value-added services in the back end. After adding value-added services, the user's SMS opens again. The company should not make money this way. It should take the proper way to make money and not follow a crooked way. Have you done it yourself or just heard about it? I did it personally. Are you sure? I am sure. I have all the records. This is too shady. We aren't willing to do it, but if you don't do it, you'll be fired. This story has attracted a lot of attention. The person who broke the news and his dismissal from the company also triggered heated debates among the public. Many people are questioning the validity of the story. Are there legal grounds for the dismissal? But coincidentally, the video in question is said to have been taken down. Suspected of being under pressure, Joko Unicom responded with a statement on November 19th. It stated that in response to the above report, the provincial and municipal companies have set up a task force for investigation. If state-owned companies can degenerate to such a low level to deceive its users or harvest the chives, it's no surprise that such practice is commonly used in other sectors in China. According to a forecast by the UN, if China's fertility rate fails to increase and its total population continues to decline, the country's population, officially claimed to be 1.4 billion, may be left with fewer than 800 million people by the end of the 21st century. China's declining population, accompanied by an aging trend, will not only result in shrinking its consumption power and diminishing its status as the world's factory, but will also increase financial pressure on pension and healthcare expenditures. The impact on China's and even the world's economy will be far-reaching. However, as mentioned earlier, even the most authoritative experts in China dare not really come up with practical and effective suggestions for the CCP. In such a case, one can actually see the future of the Red Country under the CCP's rule today.